Good morning or evening. Anybody feel like there's anything that they really have been waiting or want to talk about? Yes, Thomas is here, and I want to talk to you about the current topography of the world you see, because the topography is going to have to undergo some changes. It's just the way it's going to be. And so there's going to be some earth shaking events, and there's going to be some earth spewing events, and there's going to be some steaming events, and there's going to be some events that are going to seem pretty incredible to you because they will be so darned explosive, you see. So let's start with the fundamentals here. And the first thing I want to tell you about the fundamentals is that they're fundamentally inherent in this trajectory because the forces are already set in motion. And the forces are so forceful that you won't be able to change them, you see. They're just going to have to be accepted for what they are. So, for you, the most important thing to realize is that God has you in hand, and God will continue to help you, Stephanie. He will continue to be there to work with you in whatever way that the two of you are able to find coherence, you see. And so you'll have to work within the framework of the bigger catastrophe on the earth, you see. And so whatever happens, we'll have to be part of the community comprehension. So everybody in this community needs to understand that things are going to change in a drastic way. And you can't continue to play the way you have. Now, I know this is very dramatic, and people have been talking about climate change for many, many years. And some have shed tears because they are so concerned about it. And they say we're all going to die one day because they trust on the signs they see. They see the signs of a world that is on the brink of destruction, you see. And the question many present to me is, can we change it? Can we change it? Can we change our trajectory? It is like saying, can we put on the brakes on the runaway train and cause it to jump back on the tracks? And I don't think so. I don't think so. You can hang on for dear life and hope that as the train is crashing through the brush and heading for the cliff, that you'll figure out how to survive, or God will take care of you. Or you can get off the train and be willing to walk through the terrain all around the train and allow it to rumble off down the hill. That is the options you have. Those are the options you have, people. It is that time when we have to make a choice. We have to make a choice. And so you stay on the train, hoping that something will happen and everything will be okay. Or you get off the train and you say, hey, we may have to walk through the brush and through the swamp, but at least we're not headed for the cliff. At least we're not going to go over the cliff because that train is headed right for the cliff. And there's nothing that can stop it, you see, because your brakes aren't going to do much once you've left the track. And there's not much way to get back. Well, there's no way to get back, actually. And so let's stack the odds in our favor. When I say let's stack the odds in our favor, I don't mean that we are the ones who have to be favored over the rest of humanity. All I mean is that we have to be proactive in the way that we come at these problems. So, you talked to God today about finances, and I also have been thinking about it a lot. And I think that we have to put our heads together and think about it. So it's time for the group, all of those who are committed to the new nation under God, to put their heads together and think about it. And I agree that we should continue to publish these discussions, at least the ones between you and me and you and God and the group in our regular sessions, because it allows other people, if they're interested, to follow along and to decide if they're going to stay on the train until it goes over the cliff or if they're going to get off and trust on God to work with them. And that includes to work with me to help us to be safe, you see, so we can reconstruct our nation in a new way. And so it's time to get pretty serious about this because things are going to get pretty rough. And it's going to be pretty tough for a lot of people who haven't even thought about these things. And the only choices they see are to stick their heads in the sand or to join the band of people who just say it's all over today, it's all over today. All of humanity is going to go away because there isn't really much we can do about it. There are some people who will say, well, we can still save the day, but they don't have the bay window open. They can't see the trajectory of what's going on, and most can't even. Even the ones who do are ignoring the heat that's coming up from inside the earth, you see. They're just ignoring it because they are focused on the heat that is being retained in the oceans, you see, and the quality of the string of events that indicate climate change and disaster if you don't change your ways. But it's too late. It's too late. You can't put all those minerals back in the ground. And you can't take all those toxic fumes out of the air. You just can't. You would need one of Dr. Seuss's vacuum machines that went around and vacuumed up the earth and cleaned it up before Mom came home. And I don't think that's going to happen here because the writing on the wall is pretty clear. So let me be the first one to say, hey, I'm here to help you any way I can. I'm not the first one to say that, of course, but I'm the first one to say it to the ones who tune in for the first time and are clueless about what we've been doing here, because we've been working on it for a long time. And it's taken a long time to build up enough energy through the trust on a small group of people who say, everything makes sense today. Everything makes sense today. I always wondered why nothing made sense. And now all the pieces are coming together because they are the ones who are piecing together the story. They're getting the pieces and they're putting together and they're saying, wow, so this is the way it is. Wow. So this is what it looks like. Wow. They're not the ones that are sitting on their hands and saying, oh, woe is me. And they're not the ones that are jumping up and down and screaming and saying, hey, we got to kill the others today. And they're not the ones who are following like lemmings to drop into the sea. And so let's see if we can change things a bit, because I like to spend time with you. And of course, Jim is ready to expand his understanding of this story because he's been here before. He's been here before. And it makes sense to him because he's been here before. And those people who trust on a certain story will recognize the way it's coming together. And they'll say, hey, I've been here before. This is familiar to me. This is familiar to me. I see where this is going because this is familiar to me. Only this time, we're going to do it differently because I learned from the last time, you see. So he's learned from his last experience. So he's an experienced guy. It's like saying that if you're going to hire someone to build a house, do you want someone that's never built one before? Or do you want somebody who's experienced, you see? So Jim is experienced, and it's beginning to get clear to him that he has nothing to fear. All he has to do is stay clear of that old time religion because it has a tendency to eradicate all that experience that you have under your belt. It tells you you're not worth anything. It says to you, you're just a sinner, you see, and you're just a beginner in every lifetime. And you're not a beginner in every lifetime. Every one of us has a lot of experience from other lifetimes, you see. And when you feel something pop into place, you say, hey, this makes sense to me today, makes sense to me today. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it's because it's not your first rodeo. It's not your first rodeo, people, because the ones who have come into the group have understood that they have a part to play. And it makes sense to them that they have a part to play. It's a little hard to stand up and say, hey, I'm not going to do it the way they told me I had to do it. And even my family doesn't understand what's going on here. But they will. They will. It's just a matter of time before they spill their guts and say, God, I'm so glad that you figured out the way, because I don't know what I would have done if I were watching the world come undone and I didn't know about the third option that you've been working on all this time. Now I understand why you've been doing what you've been doing and why you've been listening to the Cat in the Hat and why you've been trusting on something that I couldn't understand because I didn't have your experience, you see. I wasn't trained to trust on my own gut. I wasn't trained to trust on what I can see when I read between the lines, you see. I had to repeat back to them the hogwash they fed me. So now I want this to be public because there are people out there who eventually are going to come to understand the lay of the land. And they're going to say, what do we do now? What do we do now? What do we do now? Do we just sit here and get swallowed by the rising sea? Or let that lava flow over me? Or do we make another choice? Do we make another choice? And that is the point of this diatribe, that the tribe of people known as East and West are the ones who have already begun to prepare because they're building the boat, you see. They're building the boat that will float them into the new reality because the new reality is going to look a lot different than the old reality. The new reality, you see, is going to have a pretty dark view of the old reality because they're going to see where it led you. It led you to the brink of destruction, you see, and only the ones who were able to listen to those of us who could see it from heaven, you see, have been able to trust on coming together to feather their nest in a new way. And they are the hope of humanity. And if you hear this and you want to be one of the ones that will save humanity, then you need to sit down with your spouse or your family and say, I'm not sure I can keep playing the same way because look where it's got us. Look where it's got us. We are sitting on the edge of destruction, people. And the constructive attitude of those who are coming together in East and West is the answer. However, it is rare for others to be able to wear their hair in that way because they only know this or that. They only know this or that. They don't know that there's another way. They can't even comprehend it because they've been programmed to stay in the same way that they did play lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. But occasionally someone would stand up and say, I'm not going to do it your way because God told me to build a boat. And I'm going to build a boat, and if you laugh at me, that's okay. And eventually, I'll take my family with me because they'll come to see that I wasn't so crazy after all, was I? And now, for those who have hit the ball over the fence because they wanted to get a home run, you see, they will be the ones who come home to God energy. And they will say, thank you, God, for being with me here today. Thank you for being with me every day. Thank you for helping to guide me into the new nation under God, because the new nation under God is a new nativity. It is the nativity of the soul energy into the world that God has prepared for them, where they will be taken care of, you see. But you can't go through that door unless you let go of the bedpost and say, I'd rather take my chance today on something that is so new then to sit here until I turn blue, because I'm holding my breath so I don't have to swallow the slough of dark energy that will inundate you. And so here's to East and West. Here's to the USA, because the USA will rise again, but it will not be in the old way, you see. It will be in the trust on the states of humanity, because the states of humanity, you see, are the states of trust on reality. May you be healthy, wealthy, and wise. May your health derive from your trust on God. May your wealth derive from trust on each other. And may your wisdom derive from the reality that you see when you open your eyes and look around you. And may you come home to reality. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much.